We have soccer stadium news galore. The Realist joins the show to talk about authenticated soccer gear and how does NIL change the incentives for young American soccer players. That and more on today's Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome into the show. This is Morning Kickaround, where we dot the map across the United States of soccer. My name is Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. We do this show Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you for tuning in. How you feeling, Mr. Davis?
Which one of those days is it now? I've lost track. What day is it?
Today is the Wednesday.
Wednesday, miércoles in Espanol, as my little kid would tell me. So yeah, okay. It's hump day. It's the middle of the week. We're all downhill from here, Rob. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better.
Realistically, how much humping does anyone get to do on a Wednesday? I mean, really. But we don't have to dwell on that for too long because we've got a great show on the way here on Wednesday. We
Setting
have
a goal. Let's not forget that we set a goal this
Start
morning
there.
again. We're asking people to become members. MK Ultras, just a couple bucks a month, gets you access to our Discord, gets you access to bonus content. We've got lots of things planned. We're ramping up our content levels here at Morning Kickaround. If you give us a super thanks, a super chat, a couple bucks, also that counts towards our goal. We're keeping our goal relatively reasonable. And at the end of the show, Rob, what do we commit to here? What are we going to do?
We are going to reveal one thing that we learned about each other while in person on location for the first time. And it's kind of an extreme experience. I'm glad it went well, going from never being around someone to being around each other for like, what, 3 whole days in a row.
Yes, right.
We'll turn the page or take the cover off, whatever analogy works best to share something. If we get a contribution,
we'll bear it all. We'll yeah, we're gonna whatever that is. What'd you say? What?
Share some shoulder? I don't know. Yeah,
I
you
don't
were
know what that
talking about
means.
some skin.
What
Just
is that a Midwestern thing? Share some shoulder.
It's a silly attempt at humor here early in the morning. Apparently, the less sleep I get, the better at the show I am. So I'll start deprivating myself. But a combination of 5 thanks memberships, any 5 contributions to the show. We will do a little bit of a bonus at the end of the program. We're talking NIL and soccer. We're talking authenticated soccer gear, stadium news. But let's lead the way with today's long balls on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Long balls here on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. If you're new to the show, these are our headlines. I'm Robert, local soccer guy. He's Jason, national radio soccer guy. And we will get to our headlines. Long ball number 1, DC United, your most localist of Major League Soccer teams. Wouldn't say they're at the forefront of success in Major League Soccer at the moment. And they made moves, but confidence is maybe wavering that these are the right moves to make in the front office of DC United. What do you think?
Well, obviously, look, they fired Troy Lesesne. They gave him nothing to work with, and then they fired him when things were bad. That's always a good sign. Now they have fight. Go ahead.
I was going to say I saw a headline of who would want this job.
Yes, well, that and there have been reports that perhaps Jim Curtin was approached, and he was like, no, please, no, I don't want to do that. Now Ali Mackay is out, their general manager, and now what does that mean? Well, it looks like they're already lining up their next CSO. Rob, the reports yesterday via Tom Bogert, Stephen Goff, that one of the guys being considered for the job is Erkut Shogut. And I'm going to probably not get that exactly right with pronunciation, but Erkut Shogut. And here's what you need to know about him, which I'm assuming that he is Turkish. That name sounds very Turkish to me.
It's unfair that I'm not a Turkish expert to correct you on your pronunciation.
That's right. Yes, you could be you could be like, hey, no, that's not how you say it. You have to say it this way. And based on what I'm seeing, This man might have a doctorate. He might have a doctorate. Does that mean that you should be excited if you're a DC United fan that this guy is got a doctorate? At least that's what it says on Amazon. And I'll get to why he's on Amazon in a second. But he is also the former agent, I believe, during his playing days of Mesut Ozil, German international, obviously Turkish by background. So there's a common shared thing there. If you know a little bit about the Mesut Ozil DC United connection, well, if you don't, let me tell you what happened. Back in, I think, 2019, somewhere in that area. Maybe it's not, maybe it's a little bit more recent than that. Mesut Ozil was reportedly on the verge of joining DC United as a designated player. Part of the deal that was supposed to get Mesut Ozil to DC was that a coffee company that he started called 39 Steps Coffee was going to open up one of their stores in Audi Field, which of course was pretty new at the time. That never happened. 39 Steps never opened. There is no coffee shop in Audi Field, much to the chagrin of many a reporter who spent multiple hours there covering a very terrible soccer team. So this guy represented Mesut Ozil, did not bring Mesut Ozil to DC, but apparently was involved in the hiring of the new head coach in DC, there was a little bit of a delay in terms of getting him into the job. Rene Weiler, he was not able to take the job directly because of those visa issues that typically come up with some of this stuff. He's a Swiss manager, but apparently connected to Erkut Sogut, who brought him in. So DC United, when they fired Ali Mackay, said, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to call up that same dude who got us our head coach. And we're going to say, hey, you got anybody who might want this job? And then by the end of the phone call, per Stephen Goff, the Washington Post, by the end of the phone call, he was offered the job as general manager CSO at DC United. And he's going to work initially remotely, per a source that Stephen Goff is saying gave him that info on. And what's sad about this, Rob, is that this is should be one of the proudest franchises in Major League Soccer, right? After the first era of MLS, things changed dramatically. DC stopped being a power, but they should have been able to keep up a little bit. Obviously got stuck at RFK Stadium for a long time, but eventually they built that. And it definitely feels like Jason Levian and the ownership there at DC United feel like, hey, job done. We built the stadium. That's real difficult in DC. We got a soccer stadium. We're done here. That's it.
That seemed like a huge leap forward for them when they were able to secure and build their own stadium. You thought that, the stadium would launch them into relevance and into the competitive balance of Major League Soccer, but it hasn't really panned out that way, has it?
No, it has not. And this is extremely frustrating. If you're just a DC, like maybe if you're a Red Bulls fan or something, you're like, good for DC stinking it up. We don't want them to be good. They're our rivals, sure. That should be a thing. We should be able to hate our rivals and not want them to have success. But if you're a general American soccer fan, DC United being terrible is not good for us. It's not good. Now, we don't want anybody to be terrible, but somebody has to be terrible. I think that's fair. I do want to show one more thing about Erkut Sogut. I mentioned he's a doctor. At least that's what it says on Amazon, where if you go to his bio page for his author page on Amazon, there are many a title. His name is on books like Cracking the Data, From the Sidelines to the Screens, Agent in Action. He's got one, How to Become a Football Agent, Dr. Erkut Sogut. He's also got one called The Women's Game, More Than Just a Game. Using the word game twice in there is kind of a red flag for me. But the most interesting titles on Erkut Sogut, his Amazon page, are fiction. He is a fiction writer in addition to being a writer on issues of football agency. And this is one of them. It is called Remember My Name. And you can see it there. It says, from the slums to the stands, they'll always want a piece of you.
Oh, that's salacious stuff. But I'm curious what, as someone who's had many random jobs and are hoping to, work into a more prestigious one with all those combined random jobs all put together, I can't hate on the man, but I'm curious as to what this development, how this leaves United fans feeling.
So what you're saying is that you respect a hustler, and he is a hustler. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if he's got, he's trying to work in football, and one of his stepping stones on the way to that is writing football fiction, then there you go.
He calls himself one of the premier agents of world football. Like, he says that in some of these bios. Now, that's just the sell job. Here's another one of his titles: Deadline by Urkut Sogut. From one of football's most influential young agents comes the thrilling debut novel Deadline, a high-octane story set in the world of football and the powerful agents who control it. It also says, you can't really see it there. Let me actually get our banner off the screen. This one, actually, no, this is not the one I was looking at. I did see one that said that one of his books was unput downable.
Ooh.
Is that a word? Can we say unput downable? Is that?
I've probably said something like that, but like after midnight, after an evening of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Look, maybe he will be good, but it doesn't engender confidence that the club's search for a new CSO constituted a phone call to the same guy that helped them find their head coach. And I don't know that this is going to be part of the story, but he's never run a club. He's never run a club. And MLS has done this before, brought in guys. Who was the guy in Charlotte? Never run a club, comes in, got Jordan Cornette, I believe. Had never run a club, gets the job at Charlotte. MLS likes to do this. Likes to bring in guys that have connections in Europe in particular on the player side. And why do they do that, Rob? I bet you can figure it out.
Why do they do that? Why?
Because it's a shortcut to recruitment. You don't have to go out and do your own scouting or do independent research to find players. You just go to the guy who runs your club, who used to be an agent, and you go, hey, who do you got?
So you're saying that they're doing this to save themselves some phone calls?
I'm saying that this is a lazy way out in terms of player recruitment. That also is a red flag in terms of an agent particularly capturing a club, using that club to benefit maybe himself, although he can't obviously represent players that he is bringing in. There are certainly lots of stories, and I'm not accusing anybody of crimes before the fact, but there are plenty of stories of agents basically dictating the transfer policy at a club, and it being a disaster for a number of reasons, including money flowing in ways it shouldn't. That's all I'll say.
MK Ultra, Nate, there comes a point when a team has been so bad for so long, you can no longer hit them or hurt them, a la Manchester United. They're bringing in a Drain the Swamp, and when has that ever gone poorly? Good note there, Nate. But yeah, we shall see. I mean, hopefully success for them. But if that was my team, I'd feel a little bit uneasy about the direction ahead. Fill in the chat and keep that going. If there's any DC United enthusiasts, fans, or locals, fill up the chat. Let's see how you're feeling about the new direction for DC United. Moving to long ball number 2, news came out yesterday. The NPSL, the National Premier Soccer League, Tier 1 National Amateur League, announced a new regional league platform partnering with the Great Lakes Alliance. And if you're not super familiar with NPSL, this has been the longest running and the top tier of amateur soccer for a very long time. Teams like Detroit City FC and Chattanooga and others, it was kind of where they germinated, and it was where they got their launch pad. But since the success of these teams, member teams of NPSL have been calling out for more. They want more responsiveness. They don't necessarily feel represented by the fees, I've heard, and it's national travel. So for amateur teams, is it easy to travel across the country and do all that? And it seems now, a few years later, after a number of years, probably half a dozen years, they've been like kind of hemorrhaging teams at NPSL. And whether this is an effort to adjust to that or try to infill the teams that they're losing each year, the NPSL have now launched the Regional League. So here's the acronym NPSL RL.
That's what we need. We need more letters to attach to our already big collection of letters. Just alphabets. My friend Charlie Boehm calls it alphabet soup of soccer. It is. It's just like, why? I mean, I don't know. I don't know that we need to be copying, right? I had issues when the USL rebranded Championship, League One, all that stuff, but at least it's clean. At least it's like, it makes, you don't like, you're not doing USL and then like 3 other letters, top level soccer, USL, TLS. I mean, in this case, but I understand what this is about, right? That, as you said, this is about cost. This is about trying to make sure that these clubs have regional opposition they can play. We actually in our Discord, the MK Ultras, Chris Sal yesterday was kind of explaining a little bit of this, and I'm just going to crib from him. NPSL itself is designed as a USASA. What is that, Rob?
United States American
Soccer
Amateur
Association.
Association.
I believe adult soccer is in there somewhere. U.S. Adult Soccer Association, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are designed rather as a tier 1 league, which when you get down to it doesn't mean much. Essentially, the USASA has 3 designations for league. And by the way, USASA is just the body that sanctions the league, which, because USASA is a U.S. soccer member, which then flows up and you get sanctioned. You're sanctioned by U.S. Soccer because USASA sanctions you as an amateur men's soccer league.
United
Right?
States Adult Soccer Association.
Right. Essentially, USASA has 3 designations for leagues: state, regional, and national. Each have their own requirements in terms of team count, area covered, and length and whatnot. NPSL is the only USASA men's national league, and USASA decided to designate them tier 1. It's basically a marketing gimmick in order to make NPSL seem higher than USL2, UPSL, and now TLFC, which is the league for clubs.
Exactly.
NPSL RL, the regional league, seems to be meant to be a new level below the NPSL tier 1 level. He says, I imagine it'll essentially be a normal NPSL conference structure, but rather than conference champions then going to regional and later national playoffs, it just ends at the conference championship to save money.
Yeah.
And he also said they did a pilot-ish thing a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, and that was all the teams based solely in Northern California. So again, this is about the end of the season. This is not about the regular season, because you are staying local. There are enough teams that they can stay local for the regular season. This is about whether or not you're going to go and spend money and and travel and maybe go beyond the windows in which a lot of your players maybe are available or can be participating.
Yeah. So for more context on NPSL, El Farolito, the Burrito Boys, the reigning champions, and they made some headlines for their run in the Open Cup, and then obviously winning the championship there. So you might have a little bit of context there. And some fans consider NPSL like in the 20 teens to be like, that was where the kind of the grassroots movement kind of exploded, especially here in Michigan. Detroit was playing Ann Arbor and Grand Rapids and Chattanooga and those sort of teams. I don't know how many head-to-heads Chattanooga and Detroit did, but Chattanooga was inspiration for Detroit, and Detroit has inspired numerous clubs to push the boat out and to compete and to kind of hunger for more from the amateur ranks. But like I said, bleeding teams for the last number of years. USL2 was very aggressive at snagging teams. Other teams have gone to more regionalized leagues like the Midwest Premier League, and then the League for Clubs has obviously soaked up some of those teams too.
Yeah, it would be nice. And I don't begrudge anybody the right to sort of launch their own thing. Everybody thinks they have a better mousetrap. Right. But it is frustrating that there is this, again, not just alphabet soup, but like this thing of, which league do these teams play in? And when we talk about this idea that the best or highest achieving amateur clubs should go pro, the fact that there's not a clear pathway on that. And I will note that somebody on Blue Sky, when I was talking about DC United, was like, if only there was a system that could punish DC United for being so bad and force them to respond by properly, setting up a sporting department that could help them be good. Obviously, this is an issue in this level too. Not all these teams want to go pro. Not all these teams would be prepared to go up a division if such a thing existed. But it is just, okay, we have a very popular, what league do they play in? Oh, they play in that league. There's 16 of them. But again, in this case, UPSL came up in Chris Sal's review of this news. UPSL operates on a different calendar with different tournaments than almost anybody else. And so what you get is teams that are playing in the NPSL also playing in the UPSL. And it's just like, it's very confusing. Very confusing.
Yes, we'll see how that pans out. The NPSL RL coming to the fields near you next year. Long ball number 3. Question here. How does NIL, the name, image, likeness, college players getting paid, change the incentives for young American soccer players? A new article asks the age-old question, what if America's top athletes became soccer players? Interesting article bringing up the old question by Sanjay Sujant Kumar of Yahoo Sports. Your take on, it's a timeless question, but the field goal posts moved a little bit with the NIL.
Yeah, the headline actually reads, what if our best athletes, and that's in scare quotes, never choose soccer? How NIL money could shape the U.S. men's national team future. Now, let's just acknowledge that this is extremely speculative and sort of hypothetical, and there's at least some argument. I'm not blaming Sanjay for writing the piece. I think it is informative and interesting. But there is an argument that you can make is like, well, look, it's not like we've got enough soccer players who are multi-sport athletes who this might matter for, except as comes out in the piece when you hear from Kyle Martino, for example, who is quoted. And Kyle Martino's a guy who's trying to make soccer more accessible to a lot of communities who maybe don't have the opportunity to have soccer be part of their sporting culture. He's got the over-under initiative, which is a plan to turn basketball courts into futsal courts, in addition to being basketball courts, not to tear down basketball nets and hoops, but to put in goals that can be popped up. He's got something called the golfer. He's been working on this for years. It kind of pops up and becomes a goal, and then you can play soccer on the same patch of concrete, the same patch of asphalt you play basketball. And so he's quoted in here because the idea is, if NIL is on the table, if players, if athletes can go to college and make money, really, really good money, like significant money, will they choose soccer? Not when they have that opportunity to go to college. It's not like being 17 and going, am I going to go play basketball in college where I can make some cash, football in college where I make some cash, or am I going to go be a soccer player? It's when they're 8, 9, 10, 11. And sometimes it won't even be up to them, or they won't ultimately be making the decision independently. It'll be parents who are pushing players towards sports, revenue sports, where they can make money. Maybe it used to be, Rob, that coaches, that players rather would end up in positions where their parents would spend money on their soccer education, meaning spend money on club soccer, which is extremely expensive, pay to play and all that. With the idea being they're going to go get a college scholarship, right? And they'll be able to play at Clemson, or they'll be able to play at SMU, or they'll be able to play at one of these soccer schools, and that will help pay for their education. And so you sort of were justifying the spend at the youth level because of what it could mean when they got to college. But obviously, if soccer is not a sport that is generating NIL money, and parents and kids look at this and go, I don't have to be pro to make money, maybe the incentives now change, and those athletes who may be good enough to choose between sports, especially when they're 8, 9, and 10, and they're not completely formed as players, maybe they won't go in the soccer direction. Maybe that will be something that causes a problem for the talent pool later on down the road.
The article talks about why the football and basketball, the accessibility, and the beaten path towards financial reward is obvious and clear. And now in the NIL era, it's reported that the average salary for these college players in a top 4 conference is about is over, it's in the 6 figures for the average football player in one of the top 4 conferences. And that is less than what the base salary for a professional Major League Soccer player is. And so that puts that in perspective. So if it has to, soccer has to become very easy and almost like proof of concept. Like if you're going to kind of wager or pick your lane for becoming a professional athlete, what could make soccer an obvious path. I mean, and any homegrown American player at all, like what's the path? Like you go to this academy and you jump around here, and then you go to an NPSL team, and then maybe you go to a college, and then maybe you get drafted.
Well, look,
like, it's not like I do well in high school, I go to college for some time and then go pro.
Yeah.
Like it's not a clear path. There's not that many American players where like he became a millionaire because he went soccer.
No, not that many examples. Obviously there are people, there are players, and this is why I don't know that this should be overstated. Like I imagine we should be careful about getting too far ahead of ourselves on this being a problem, because a guy like Christian Pulisic was always going to be a soccer player because his dad was a soccer player and because it's in the family. Now, he also was sort of privileged in the sense that soccer was extremely accessible to him. Even going over to England and training with clubs when he was young and his dad was visiting and all these things, like that's not things that normal players get to do. So obviously what's at issue here, what Sanjay writes about, and when he talks to Chris Richards, who comes from Birmingham, Alabama, probably the most football places, or at least among them. And he says, I was pushed into football. I wanted to play, but my mom wouldn't let me, which, that may be a thing. But he was also a basketball player. And he's obviously got the height to at least have played maybe in college. And if it was always out there that he could have gone and gotten a college scholarship or gone to college and then made money while he was in college, rather than signing for FC Dallas when he was a teenager, then maybe he wouldn't have chosen soccer. And he says what was interesting is before NIL, when he was a pro, he was already a pro making money playing for FC Dallas because he signed a contract. He never played for Dallas. He ended up going over to Bayern Munich. But he said when he would come home, he'd have money to spend and go out with his friends, and they wouldn't have any. And the kids who went to college would have no money. Obviously, that has changed dramatically in those revenue sports. And now with the lawsuit that has meant that the players get paid directly, you're hearing about players making 6 figures, 7 figures in college, and not everybody will make that. But I think there is even a stat in there about sort of the average starter for a football team at the top division in the Division I level, the championship, the BCS level, or whatever we're calling it now, base salary of something like $104,000 is the base salary in Major League Soccer. Now that, obviously players can make more. While there's a lack of transparency around exactly how much college athletes are earning, that figure is below the estimated range for Power 4 conference football starters, essentially at every position this year, right? So every player who is a starter, now, again, whether or not you're going to be a starter could be up in the air. Like there's lots of things you have to consider with this. And I guess I don't know that I see this as a problem yet. I feel like it's probably too soon to know whether the incentives changing will mean that the quote unquote best athletes or that soccer is going to lose out, because I think the cultural barriers to soccer getting those level of athletes don't change dramatically just because there's money on the table.
Because I exist largely in the summer soccer realm, where in the USL2, where 99% of the players are college athletes, kind of opens the door to, we had to tiptoe around like what we could provide for players, what we couldn't. And NIL is definitely like that, those weird gray areas. And if I get someone a hamburger, are they going to lose their college scholarship? Like that's gone right out the window. So that like kind of makes that easier.
Yeah.
But with those teams getting older and the divisions and more familiarity, like the owners are getting more and more competitive. So I'm curious if the NIL stuff will spill over more and more into the summer amateur realm
and
as well.
This is not directly connected to this story, because again, this is, we're not talking about college. We're not talking about soccer players doing this because of college questions. We're saying soccer players may not choose to sign with academies and go through that pathway if being an athlete in a different sport might be making more money. Again, this is only applicable to young athletes who might be good enough in multiple sports. We're talking about the inception point. Now, you're not going to get LeBron James to have been a soccer player. He was always going to be too big. It was never going to happen. That's why the best athletes conversation is kind of ridiculous to start with. Because when you think best athletes, you're thinking about oversized individuals, human beings of super proportions who could not be soccer players anyway. What we're really talking about is whether or not people give up on their dream of being a football player and because of size, who would play soccer, but maybe don't now because, hey, I can get to college, pay for my college, and make money, even if I'm not going to be a pro, even if I'm not going to be an NBA player or an NFL player, right? So this is about the inception point, because the way the soccer pathway works traditionally, and it's starting to work more and more in this country, is you're not going to go to college to play soccer. So, and again, you're not probably going to make a lot of NIL money in soccer in college anyway. So if you are truly committed to soccer, it's not going to change for you. You're not going to go, oh, well, there's football money out there. Because if you're 5'6" and 140 pounds, there's only one sport for you, brother. I'm sorry. That's where it is. But again, like, if this changes the incentives, and particularly if you imagine that American soccer could improve by getting players in communities that where the sport is not otherwise a big deal or is only just now growing in cultural importance, if the incentives are now even more intense, that being a basketball player, being a football player, being those things is more enticing, and you stay longer in that sport in the bid to reach that level, then you are not going to be a professional soccer player because you'll be too far behind the curve. And I think that's part of this.
Real quick, don't want to dwell on this too long, but I'd say this: top athletes in America picking soccer or not. How do you, when someone a soccer civilian, if you will, asks you a question, how do you answer that?
About the best athletes thing?
Yeah, like what if LeBron James plays soccer? Would America be good?
It's what Super Nintendo Chalmers just said in the chat. Our best athletes are only the best in a specialized field. Stop glazing them like they can do everything. They can't. Right? It's ridiculous to make the argument that if LeBron James had decided to play soccer instead of basketball, he would have been one of the best soccer players in the world. You have no way of knowing that. You have no way of knowing that. Right? There's no, it's so reductive because it goes from the end point and tries to work backwards. Oh, that's the best athlete in the world because he's very good at this one sport. It doesn't work that you can just rewind time, have him change sports, and still be as successful in that other sport. It doesn't work that way. That's the logic falls apart pretty easily. So that's what I tell people. Now, they don't want to hear it because for them, the 1 + 1 = 2. You take the best athlete from another sport. Well, if only he had been a soccer player, we could be World Cup champions right now, Rob. That's not true. Our sports are extremely specialized, as he said, as Super Nintendo Chalmers said. And you have to be specialized in your sport. Now, part of the story from Sanjay is also about that. Right? And that's kind of what I was getting to, the specialization thing. And that's what Kyle Martino was saying. If we are encouraging people to specialize early, which society already does, the money, the incentives already do, and now there's even more incentive to not play soccer, then does that push away players who otherwise might choose it? And look, Chris Richards is a good example. What is he, 6'3"? Right? He might not have been an incredible basketball player if he had stuck with basketball and not chosen to play soccer. But there's a chance he could have gotten a college gig, gotten to a school, made some money if NIL was on the table, right? It doesn't mean he would have been the best player and it doesn't mean he would have been an NBA player one day. It just means that he didn't choose soccer, and we lose out on Chris Richards and what he is now.
Indeed, and we'll keep our eye on this as we progress in the story and how NIL impacts soccer here in the United States. But if you're watching this now and you haven't hit subscribe, what you doing? Hit those subscribe numbers. Let's boost those numbers, get them up. And we have an incentive, a combination of any memberships or super thanks that we get during the last half hour of this show. If we get up to 5, we'll do a bonus segment. We'll what we learned about each other, your fearless duo here on Morning Kickaround. What did we learn about each other while on location over the weekend? Get those in. 2 super thanks, 3 memberships, or vice versa, any combination to get to 5 new contributions to the show. And we will do a little bit of bonus after the show here on Wednesday. We are going to take a breath and switch gears a little bit. We have a special guest joining us on the big question, Skee from The Realist, talking about authenticated soccer gear here on Morning Kickaround. All right, we're back in here on the big question, and we're talking about authenticated soccer gear with The Realist. You had an opportunity to speak with him earlier on. Yep. You want to say anything to introduce this conversation?
No, I mean, look, I think this is interesting. You'll hear my conversation with Skee. It's about, again, so I grew up with baseball cards. A lot of people did. I mean, I'm old enough that they were like huge. We had, collecting Beckett card monthlies and things like that. And if I could have gotten my hands on like, I don't know, Darryl Strawberry's bat or something, I would have probably loved to have done that. I could not afford that. But baseball has that thing, and we have that culture in this country of like collecting authentic game used stuff. And I think it's very interesting to consider what that might look like in soccer. So we are going to hear from Skee. I'll let the interview stand on its own. If you want to check it out, it's therealist.com. We ready for this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, here we go. All right, we're here on Morning Kick Around. Jason Davis getting an opportunity to talk soccer memorabilia, authenticated real stuff with Skee from The Realist, who joins us here on the program. First of all, thank you for the time. We appreciate you coming by.
An honor to be here, Jason. Thank you for having me.
So this is an interesting idea. And as someone who grew up just absolutely immersed in American sports history, I'm extremely fascinated by what you got going on here. And now, obviously, as a soccer guy, this is something that I don't think I've thought about in terms of soccer, because I don't know. As I grew up, it was always like a baseball signed by somebody or something like that. How does soccer play with this idea of authentic memorabilia, signatures, game use stuff like that?
I mean, when you look at soccer, right, it's by far the most popular sport on the globe. You look at the most famous people in the world, it is the top soccer players, right? And there's been historical sales, right? Like we've seen what Messi's jerseys from the World Cup, the group of those selling for $8 million at auction, right? Like, which sounds crazy, but is probably a steal in retrospect, in comparison, seeing how some of these other greats jerseys are now being priced. And we just think that, when you look at the market, historically, America has been a leader in the memorabilia category, to your point, starting with baseball cards. The name for the category is, a lot of times people call them baseball cards, even if they are other sports. And so it's been a leg up. But we think with collectibles becoming mainstream, with it growing, and with kind of the world becoming more ubiquitous, soccer's become, such a big kind of key area and so ripe for growth, which is why we've seen an explosion in our work this past year with the MLS and FIFA around the Club World Cup.
Okay. So it is therealist.com where you can check out what Skee's got going on here. And again, it's a marketplace for memorabilia, for sports memorabilia. And I guess I again, sort of acknowledging that I didn't connect with soccer the same way I used to connect with baseball in terms of memorabilia. What is the market? I mean, yes, Lionel Messi jerseys, clearly everybody wants a game-worn World Cup Lionel Messi jersey. He's the god. But is there a marketplace for things that aren't quite on that same level?
Absolutely, right? Like we want to have, and part of us too is introducing these products to new audiences. A lot of people just don't realize that, hey, you can actually buy something that was used from a game, from a jersey from one of their favorite players that doesn't have to be the star player, right? Like everybody's wearing a jersey. And if you go to a game, right, like kids, when I talk to players all the time, they're like, yeah, kids are always asking me, not even for a jersey, right, but for like a sweatband, for a water bottle. People want something as a memento that's there. And we think that that market is massive. I mean, there's historical data of, jerseys, including in soccer, being sold at significant value. Obviously, Messi is on the higher end of that. But I mean, we've had tremendous success selling game-worn jerseys for thousands of dollars from, regular matches and things like that. Obviously, a lot of it depends on the game, the match, the team, the player. There's a lot of variables that go into it. But it's really a memento that you take with you that represents more than just a jersey that you can get, and is also, being treated now as an alternative asset.
So the other part of this, I mean, you said it's the most popular sport in the world. It's also just the biggest in terms of volume. Like the number of actual professional soccer matches that go on any given year is insane. It's something I always have to talk about with people who don't know soccer. It's like there's this league and that other league, and which one's the best is sometimes not clear. We have clear ideas of who the greats are in our American sports because there's one league for each of them, or you might talk about college a little bit. How does that work? I mean, just making sure that you're kind of you're the sectionality of that sport is represented in a way that will reflect the market, but also you're trying to be a little selective, right?
There's fandom everywhere. I think there's two things at play. There's people that are buying for flips and for value, and there is opportunities in lower markets. I mean, if you look at going back to your analogy of baseball cards, the most expensive and popular cards today are Bowman minor league rookie cards, right? Because people are gambling that they are going to become the next superstar. So that's where the most action is. And the most value is that player's first card. So there's opportunity on lower level leagues, on entry level leagues. And then the second half is pure fandom that plays into a fan's heart. Wherever you grow up, whatever your team of, no matter what league you're in, you could be in Bundesliga, you could be in Serie A, you could be in MLS, you could be in, MLS Next, you could be in somewhere else. Like there are people going to that game. There are people that are fans of that, whether it's, embedded in them from birth, or they are a fan of the player, or they just happen to go to that game and have a great time. What we kind of sell is those memories, right? Like we are selling jerseys no different than what you could buy in a team store, other than the fact that this is the only one in the world that was actually worn by that player, and that has an intrinsic value that represents so much more than that. And we kind of unlock that through this unique authentication process we do. So we think that there's kind of a couple plays. Like some of it is for memory and pure nostalgia, to remember and reminisce on a moment that you can definitively point that represents something.
So talk about that process of authentication and making sure, because, one thing we touched on before you jumped on, and certainly I would love to hear about, is, how do I know that what I'm buying is the real thing?
It's a great question. And that's been one of the biggest challenges in this industry. I mean, like, look, not to hide anything, when people think of memorabilia and it's like kind of a shady industry. It's like old school and dirty and dusty. And I mean, the FBI estimates up to 90% of memorabilia out there may be fraudulent, which is just an insane stat. Like it ponders your mind. And we've seen it over and over on the biggest auction sites in the world, selling items that come with a certificate of authentication that may be signed by somebody. They're really meaningless. We found, one of the reasons we launched the business is, there was only really one league doing it right, which was Major League Baseball, who used this witness-based sophisticated program, best in the industry by far. There's not even a number two. And we asked, why is every other sports property not doing that? And that's how we work. We work direct with the source. We don't take third-party items. So we're not the eBay or, a Golden, an auction site where you can go consign things. We are getting them from the field. We have authenticators on site, collecting them, watching them. We covertly mark them. We overtly mark them with a sticker after. It's a really comprehensive process in how we definitively track that, but it allows us to be the true source of truth, which we think is the foundation for everything. Because I mean, imagine buying a jersey, whether it's $1 million or even, $1,000, you want to be sure that that's real. And not many people can guarantee that right now.
Yeah, that absolutely. I mean, in this world where nothing is what it seems and all that, I can understand why this would be an incredibly valuable service, just to have somebody saying, we saw this come off the player, or we saw the player gave this to the league, gave this to us, and we're passing it on direct to chain of custody. Are you guys dealing with chain of custody?
No, it's like literally like it's rooted in evidence collection. I mean, like, look, we brought on experts from the FBI and from security firms and these things to build it. And like, it's a real process. And you also can't trust, like, not that you can't trust the teams. It's not the team's jobs. Like, it's a specialized skill set where even in the past, we've seen teams and leagues make mistakes, and a lot of other companies, because the equipment manager might be looking away and there's multiple jerseys. There's always a backup. The player could have kept it, right? So you never know, and that's not their job, right? So we think that it's, foolish to just depend on those things, which is why we bring in trusted third parties whose whole job is this. There's enough value and money in these things. We've got to get this right.
Seems very complicated logistically. Like, that just makes my brain hurt a little bit, Skee. You think about the number of people and all that, and even vetting them, right? Vetting each one of those people. You have to be sure.
Look, that's why we launched the business. My co-founder Vernika was working for one of the Major League Baseball teams for the last 15 years. So we're fortunate that we have outsized experience, but you're right. That's why we launched this business and where we saw the opportunity. It doesn't make sense for clubs to build it themselves. Even leagues, it's too big. We have, hundreds of people that we work with across the globe, right, that go out and do this, that are vetted, that go through intense background checks, that we have multiple people on site. We have our own proprietary tech. It is a really, it sounds easy, oh, well, they'll go take the jersey. We are absolutely certain of everything that we sell, and we back it with the best guarantee in the industry.
So, again, talking about the vastness of this game that we love, and the international flavor of it, right? That thing is a complicating factor. It doesn't have to mean that you can't do it, but I do wonder, how are you sort of translating what you're doing into those different cultures. I mean, like if I'm an American soccer fan, I may love the Bundesliga, I may love Serie A. I can go find an AC Milan shirt that I want to buy. But how do the people in Italy connect with you guys if they want to buy an AC Milan shirt?
100%. I mean, that's the kind of our benefit of working with the source, right? We get that instant credibility because it's coming from the team. We're not taking it from a fan who's like, oh, he threw it in the crowd and I got this jersey from a player, where we could never truly source that. We work in partnership with these clubs, so they're able to go directly to their audience and message that. And then we have such a great pulse on the collector community. I've been super deep in this scene, for a long, long time. And it's still relatively small. For me, it's not just like we get kind of the obvious of the buyers that are out there. We're getting like the obvious benefits from working with these clubs, but for us, it's really storytelling. At the end of the day, that's what we are selling. Like, let's make no bones about it. We're not selling a jersey made of gold. It's different. It's the same one you could buy from a club store in essence. Some of them will sometimes have like different, obviously like markings or something on it, but the value is that moment. And for me, it was, falling in love with sports. I grew up in Minneapolis, so it was the 91 Twins when they won the World Series. Like that, like I wanted to search and get as close to the game as possible. And we see that. You mentioned it with AI and this kind of era. People want tangible items that are real. And for us, we think that like providing that value and telling a story and how we go out and engage. And an example is how we collected snow this season with the Philadelphia Eagles and bottled it into a local kind of, we made it like pseudo, like off the Rita's Italian, like Philly water ice. And, bottled it, and that went viral, right? Because it was snow, but it reflected such an important moment in Eagles lore, right? And we were able to certify that. And when people are buying it, they're not buying it because it's snow. They're buying it because of the memory that it holds, which could be more than the game. It could be being there with their family, being that, how important this was, how they watched it. It was, a year they won the Super Bowl. So like, it's all those intangibles that go in. So I think for us, it really boils down to storytelling. And that was kind of my career before I launched this business, and why I think we're in such a unique place is we just, have a deep, deep understanding of how to create content and storytell and also elevate these. I mean, for us, like, yes, of course we're a business and want to make money, but for me, it's really about preserving and legacy, and we storytell through physical product.
So I'm taking a look and I'm scrolling. I encourage other people to do that. TheRealist.com. For all of this stuff. I mean, it's a little overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie, Skee. It's a little overwhelming. There's a lot to look at here. I mean, and I'm clicking, looking for what, for the soccer stuff. So you tell me what has popped up in terms of soccer that maybe surprised you, or maybe just it feels like something truly special. I mean, I'm not saying that a Benjamin Kramaski jersey from MLS Media Day isn't cool. I get it, but what is the thing that you're like, oh, wow, I can't believe that's here, or what we got our hands on this?
You know what I love? Like, transparently, of course, like all of and we've been fortunate, we've set records at the highest level in every category that we go. So like the big sales are always awesome, right? Like that's what we're talking about, even like with a Messi $8 million jersey sale, but that's kind of like obvious and table stakes, and transparently, like not that difficult to do. If I gave you a Messi's game worn jersey, JC, you could probably sell it for a bunch of money, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not
probably. Yeah.
I mean,
I know some people. Yeah.
We think we do a better job than anybody else out there, and it's backed. But for me, what really excites me is how we create products and how we're able to upcycle all these other items that are maybe less spectacular than that, right? Like we're able to take things from like in soccer specifically, from whether it's arm bag, it's corner flags, like things that are really cool and presentable. And for me, it's creating accessible product. It's not just like these high-end records. Because when I was a kid, like I thought $100 Ken Griffey Jr. card I would never be able to afford that, right? So many of these jerseys are just not affordable to the average kid, and that's not going to grow the category. You grow the category by offering things that are cheap and entry level, and we've done that with a number of our clients. So I get really excited when we sell a piece of a net, or when we productize something and create 1,000, net pieces in like an acrylic display that's elevated and presented really well, right? And can give 1,000 new fans the opportunity to own and engage something from the game. And that kind of gets their collector journey started. I started off buying small cards and now, have way too much stuff, right? But like, it doesn't start, like I didn't start buying, $1 million item, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking it through the evolution of this kind of thing. I mean, obviously people have always had stuff or kept something that meant something to them.
Look behind you, right?
Like, well, yeah, so much stuff given to me over the years, right? And I'm blessed that way. Not I wouldn't say any of this is going to go for a lot of money on the realist, but it's still cool that I have it, and it does mean stuff. It means something to me because I built a career in this sport. But you're talking about that. You referenced the Griffey rookie card. That was the holy grail for us. I think if we're of roughly the same age, then absolutely, when I was a kid, that was the card everybody wanted. And I'm wondering, like, if there is, if you feel like there's a cultural structure to this, maybe it's building, maybe it's not quite there yet. Because if baseball cards is kind of the thing that is like the origin of Americans collecting things around the sports that they care about, is that something that still is forming in other places? Is there, I mean, I know Panini sticker books are a thing in other parts of the world, but it doesn't feel the same as a baseball card to me.
You nailed it, right? Like it's still early in this category, and there's a number of headwinds, right? I mean, even just today, eBay announced that they've done, I think, like, $10 billion, and their collectibles business alone is $10 billion. And that's all like third party, right? It's not even from the source. Typically, like, the source hasn't done that. And there's a bunch of headwinds at that. Like, the category is growing. As you mentioned, we live in a world where like AI and deep fakes and all of these things are taking over. So we think dictating what is real is only going to get more valuable, especially with the amount of fraud. Fans want to be closer to their favorite games and moments. There's very few things that unite the world. It's really like sports, music, entertainment, right? Like, the only time the world is all together is watching the World Cup, watching the Super Bowl, watching these sporting events and sectors, or, and that is wildly powerful. Like, that's how we identify. And so for us, we think, like, giving people, hey, they're waiting in line hours, spending a fortune on merch. There's a lot of people who want more than that, who want something that can reflect something. And that, even whether it's like, again, an alternative asset value, or just something behind you that represents, hey, I went to this match. It might be unspectacular to the world, but to you, that was the match that you went at. We think all those things are there. So as like a combination of the collectible industry explodes, people want to stand out and dictate what's real, and transparently getting introduced to these products, which is why it's so important for us to have all these categories. That's why we're so excited about the sector as a whole. And we think, like, internationally, because the whole world has been behind, like the US is led in categories of like memorabilia and collectibles and cards. The rest of the world is catching up. Like, we're seeing this, and now every club internationally is at some point sold their jerseys and thinking about what memorabilia is for them.
Very cool stuff. If I had a little bit more money and a partner who would understand, I would be on your site quite a bit. But for the moment, I'll just send people there. Hopefully people check it out and buy something cool at therealist.com. Thank you so much for the time and the introduction to this. It's incredible.
Of course. Thank you so much, Jason. Really appreciate the time as well.
That was Skee and Jason talking authenticated soccer gear. Good conversation there. Kind of talks about the community and everything else surrounding the game.
Let me ask you, Rob, what would be the thing you would want? Now, you could think history if you want. I want Bill Shankly's socks or something. I don't know what you want, but like in a modern context, what would it be? Would it be like, I don't know, Trent's jersey from the corner kick, or a Mo Salah a shirt, or a ball from a certain game? What if you had the cash and you could go to the realist and buy something? What would you buy?
Ooh, that's a good one. Should we keep this to anything or to American?
No. Well, I was talking Liverpool because I know how much you love Liverpool. But yeah, okay, maybe we should do it American. Maybe we should give this to the chat too. What's the piece of soccer memorabilia that you would want to buy if you had the money, if you could go over to the realist and find it?
So memorabilia that I would love from American soccer would be the referee notebook that Mr. the Deuce ripped up in that bloody red card. What do they call it? The red card game?
Yeah, red card wedding, because of Game of Thrones. I think I would want to go with, I think I would want one of the pennies worn by an American who jumped on the pile when Landon Donovan scored the winner against Algeria in the 2010 World Cup. What about that? What do you think?
That's a pretty good one. I mean, that's like hallowed stuff. That's probably one of our best shared experiences of the United States men's national team.
I'd take Landon's jersey from that game too. I'm just trying to think a little bit outside the box. Something that might not cost me, $20,000 or what it might cost to buy that jersey.
personal anecdote. When Donovan scored that goal against Algeria, I was doing my college radio show. So we're playing, like independent hip hop and stuff like that while on our laptop watching the game. And we opened the mic, just us screaming when he scored the goal.
There you go.
I don't know if anyone in Kalamazoo, Michigan, listening to WIDR had any idea what we were screaming about at the time, but it was a great memory there. Yeah. So if you've watched this, enjoy the content, subscribe. And then we are also on the line. If we get 5 contributions, whether it be memberships or otherwise, by the end of the program, we'll do a bonus Q&A. Since during that interview, I got a couple things lined up for answers of what I learned about Jason while on location.
Ooh, okay. I mean, if we don't get the memberships and we don't get the super chats, then I guess we're going to be doing this just for our MK Ultras, a little special short form video on that. So look forward to that.
Yeah, MK Ultras are members of Morning Kick Around, and with a membership, you get priority access to videos, bonus content videos. We put tons of member-only content up over the weekend in Albuquerque, $3.99 a month. And one of the biggest things from there is the access to the Discord server. There's been some very robust conversation about local soccer, national team, MLS, USL. And it's kind of been a give and take. A lot of people bringing us conversation.
Yeah.
We got some more context on the NPSL story from Crisau in the Discord.
Several manifestos, which is what we lovingly call the pro-rel plans that MK Ultras have dropped into the Discord. And I think we're due for a review on a pro-rel manifesto. So maybe that's coming soon too.
Yes, indeed we do. But we do, in fact, we are running a little late today, but we do actually have one more segment to roll. Let's dig into some soccer construction news here on Morning Kick Around. Let's roll it. Oh, soccer under construction here on Morning Kick Around. I'm Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis. And as we dot the map with clubs, fans, and stadiums, we kind of sharpen up the point of our pencil with a bunch of news coming out this week from 2 major projects in major cities. A lot of politics mixed in with this first one. We're going to go over to Boston.
What are you talking about? There's politics involved in every one of these things. Don't act like it's just Boston that has politics.
Well, that's fair, but it's like there's not many steps removed from this one in Boston, with the mayor backing one plan, a mayoral opponent backing another plan. But the mayor, Mayor Wu, her backed program or project is the White Stadium for the NWSL club. Secured $100 million in financing from Bank of America, which was needed in advance to complete renovations to the historic White Stadium, clearing a major hurdle for the project for the Wu administration, per WBRR Boston.
Looks good. I think we have a picture of some of the. Oh, that's me and Skee.
That's
Let's
not
get
a
that
stadium.
There it is. There's a stadium. We'll get that workflow done at some point. There's some of what's happening there at White Stadium. This is for Boston legacy, as Rob said. And when you look at the renderings of this, and maybe I can pull this up real fast and get it on screen. I didn't plan the White Stadium rendering to be part of this, but when you look at the rendering, we're not talking about anything sort of dramatically fancy. It's sort of a pretty basic soccer stadium, reasonably good looking soccer stadium with a couple of covered stands on the sideline ends, but open otherwise. And 100 million sounds like a lot, but I don't think it actually is, Rob. Like, I think we've got, we know how much it costs, not just like to build the stadium, but to put up to do all the extra work that goes. Here's this rendering for White Stadium, which you can see Boston is kind of in the downtown area is kind of in the distance. White Stadium's not downtown by any stretch or anywhere sort of close to where you would think of when you think of Boston. But it looks very nice here. And if they can get this done, it will be one of the jewels of NWSL. I mean, we're looking to build women's soccer stadiums like we've been talking about building men's soccer stadiums. And as of right now, I believe we have one purpose-built women's soccer stadium out in Kansas City. This would be number 2.
Yeah, and we talked about it a lot on the weekend when we were out in Albuquerque, just how like having your own stadium, a soccer-specific stadium, just puts kind of almost a hard to deny roots into the ground, and the level of seriousness that your outfit is headed. It just adds a legitimacy to it that really can't be accomplished for the most part when you're just renting a location, because a lease can be ripped up at any time.
Yeah.
Much different when all this money is being put into a physical building that's specifically for you.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. There was something very, I don't know what the right word is here. I mean, something very organic. It felt very, it very cool to be part of what we saw in Albuquerque when the team, meaning the staff, gathers to pull the tarp off the field. I mean, we're talking about accountants out there, pulling the tarp off the field to get that place ready for a New Mexico United game, but they would rather not do it. They would prefer not to have to do any of that. Ron Patel, the president of the club, was telling us how much it costs just to get to, we can start the game now. And we're not talking about like concessions or anybody in the taking care of the fans. We're only talking about preparing the field and how much they have to spend on that on a match day. They prefer not to do that. Now, maybe they have to finance a building and to pay off some creditors over time, but they would prefer it be their building. And of course, the lines on the field, the quality of the surface, right? We
turning baseball into soccer, no easy feat.
No, and we don't want that thing of, oh, is this going to be a good surface to play on? Well, we just had a football game out there. Now, I know I sometimes you do have to share, right? And I do think that if there's any money involved, any public money involved, then you have to share. So the lease agreement that was signed by Mayor Wu last December, the team agreed to pay for half the cost needed to demolish and rebuild a new facility in time for the team and Boston school kids to use it by spring 2026. They are now expecting to get this done in 2027. It's not going to happen. They had some delays in all of this, but obviously this $100 million in financing is actually over and above the $25 million sum placed in escrow last February that acts as a guarantee to the city in case the team were to come up short. We don't yet know how much is going to cost the city of Boston. And actually, that came up in our chat that John said that Wu comes across as a hypocrite here because she doesn't like Robert Kraft. Josh Kraft just dropped out of the mayoral race. There were some questions about the stadium in Revere and all of that. So yeah, there's plans to build a training facility in Brockton. Jamaica Plain this is part of the city. And I'm not saying it's not part of Boston. I'm just saying, it's very difficult to build a city center in a place like Boston, just like you're not going to get a stadium in Manhattan, for example, if you're building.
No, tough stuff to build in these cities. Obviously, it's taken so long for Boston to get a stadium inside the city area. So definitely no easy feat there, but things may be becoming clear with the mayoral race playing out a bit. But switching cities, another major city with a stadium plan in the works, Chicago. The Chicago Fire hired 3 local contractors for the construction of the brand new stadium in the 78 neighborhood Pepper Construction.
Sorry, let me get this. Let me fix my problem. Thank you, John. I meant Everett, not Revere. My apologies. I'm getting my Boston geography messed up. Everett. I keep messing that up. Thank you, John. I'm sorry. That's a slip of the tongue.
Oh well. No harm, no foul, but good correction there. But yeah, in Chicago, they picked 3 local contractors: Pepper, GMA, and All Construction Group will build Chicago Fire's new $650 million stadium in downtown Chicago, announced on Monday. 22,000 is the expected capacity, entirely privately financed by Mansueto, and serving as the anchor to this neighborhood called the 78. Something that went under the radar, though, a couple weeks ago, a little bit of an amendment. A new proposal to this plan eliminates some of the stuff that people were excited about. There was some housing stuff and also some transportation, including a Red Line station some bike paths. So some of the public benefits quietly removed from this, but the big news this week, construction contractors hired.
Yeah, that's obviously a step. You know, my attitude about these projects has always been, I'll believe the stadium is happening when they are playing soccer on the field in the stadium and there are people watching. Like, you can't get ahead of yourself because there are always delays, there are always cost overruns, and that even includes the idea of, like, will it look like this? If it does, what a stadium. I mean, if this building ends up looking like this and the Chicago Fire are playing matches inside that building right there just off the loop in downtown Chicago, holy crap, what a success story for Joe Mansueto and that club. Now, they have to get better in order to make it really worth it, but what a success story. And I know he is extremely rich, like wealthy beyond imagination, and probably can foot the bill for a lot of things. But we know the history of sports. Even billionaires don't like to pay more than they have to. And so they're going to cut public amenities, or they're going to ask the city for a tax break, right? We're seeing this in Detroit. We're going to see, it's always, how little can we pay to build a soccer stadium that we control?
And you notice you put that a lot of these stadium deals, you put the sweetheart part at the beginning of it, and over time it kind of becomes eroded to where it's like, it's a partnership, and then maybe the city, felt the impetus to take on more responsibility, and so hopefully that doesn't get eroded too much here in Chicago, and hopefully the plans do turn into this. Losing the CTA line, that's a big hit there, because Chicago's got an excellent public transport system. I know locals might say it's being eroded in the last few years, but compared to where I'm in Detroit, world-class public transportation in Chicago. And hopefully this path along the river doesn't go away, or that grass public field, by the look of it right there, that has a farmer's market.
I don't know. Is that supposed to be public, or is that training, or what are we looking at? Because in this rendering that you're seeing on the screen, it does look like there's some sort of farmer's market thing happening. I don't know. You could obviously conceive of this as like an opportunity for local youth clubs and various organizations to be out there, combine that, like, here's some public service organizations who are doing things in the community, and the Fire are hosting them, and you get to learn that. Maybe it is a farmer's market. Maybe there are, like, squashes for sale right alongside the new venue for the Chicago Fire. I don't know. I mean, obviously you can't take that stuff in the building, right? That would probably end up on the field at some point.
Yeah, people walking in with two kumquats, just like, I'm ready for the game.
I mean, I'm always wondering how the Detroit people get things into the, what is it they throw in Detroit? What is it they throw? Octopus on the ice, right?
On the ice, yeah. I think there's a lot of What is a octopus is up the jacket or down the pant leg or something. They get them in there somehow.
Anyway. If that's public space, that would obviously be incredible. I hope they do. Right, as you said, do not bait and switch us. Guess what? All of them do it. Every single one. All the stadiums are bait and switch on some level. There's a roof. Oh no, there's no roof. It costs too much. Or again, public transportation. Yeah, we're not gonna be able to put the infrastructure in right now. That'll come later. Or there's gonna be mixed use, and there's gonna be public housing. Right? Isn't this kind of the thing that happened in Indianapolis too? This whole argument over what it's supposed to be. And actually, we had this off of our video on minor versus lower league, which is semantics. Not saying it's not, but sometimes semantics matter. And you said, Rob, correctly, when somebody, I think in the Discord, was talking about this, it was a comment on the video, that Indianapolis obviously has a mayor who thinks of USL as minor league because he's been chasing Major League Soccer.
Yeah, that's unreal. If we just separate that in context, Indianapolis, you have an established USL championship side. They are looking to legitimize themselves and take a step forward with a stadium. And there was already progress made. They knocked down an old building, and they're getting all that in the works. And then the mayor seemingly has his own motivations, and whether he just used MLS as a way to railroad the USL plan. But essentially that's what happened. He said MLS is coming in, and then basically just turned one meeting with MLS officials into ending the USL project, or completely putting that on the back burner, and really threw things off. And definitely doesn't consider, or it might not even have to do with the soccer team. It might just be his motivations to get that other site developed. And like we started this whole segment off, local politics really have a hand in here. And, Boston, Chicago, other places, no different in that aspect. And you're talking about Detroit. There's a couple switches there with the Detroit City FC soccer stadium, but a prime example of the bait and switch is the Illich's and Little Caesars Arena, where the Red Wings and the Pistons play. There was supposed to be all this a commitment to public spaces, public squares, as well as affordable housing. And, let's get the stadium built first, and then we'll build all those other developments. Well, Little Caesars Arena has existed for a number of years, and I think it's about a year and a half ago, we're excused by the state for the obligations to build the public squares and the affordable housing. So you see, there is a track record for those public benefits to kind of get whittled away once the primary interested part of the project is taken care of.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, right? And it doesn't make you feel good about the process, even if you were 100% on board with the idea of
we
American
100%
soccer
want
teams
stadiums, right? Like, there's nothing that we
stadiums.
want more than a soccer stadium for every team.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. It's the bargain we have to make. And again, if you don't live in the community that is affected by this, like in terms of like public money being spent or whatever, and maybe at the end of the day, it is worth it. I don't take a black and white view of this, right? I'm not, every single stadium deal is bad if it involves even a single dollar of public money. There are people like Neil DeMoss at Field of Schemes who certainly seem to feel that way. So we will continue to do our best to interrogate these deals as much as we can, even as we are very much on the side of please build us soccer stadiums.
We're going to give you guys a couple more minutes to get in your contributions. We're going for 5 super thanks or new memberships to make a bonus episode here live on the show. If we don't get that, that'll be a members only thing. Thank you to Luke. He's hypothesizing that I like bubble gum flavored toothpaste.
I'm not answering any of those questions. That's only for the members at this point. The ultras are the ones who are going to get that information. We will talk maybe about the shared toothbrush thing is going to make me gag. So we're not doing that. But
I learned Jason was a germaphobe on the trip. You'll never know unless you become a member or send a super thanks in the next couple moments. But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you to Skee from The Realist for joining us and telling us about his business. Please, I like to encourage you guys, check out the live episode from Albuquerque, the full episode out there under the live tab on the channel. We've also got a singular video with the owner, Peter Trevisani, which is an excellent discussion about the origins of New Mexico United, the combination, the collaboration with art collective Meow Wolf, and in just a great game day style atmosphere. That's what we were going for. And a lot of people said we kind of hit that on the head there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great experience. Hopefully getting some other things in the works. I have some very early interest from a potential next stop for Morning Kick Around when it comes to our tour. Again, dot the map is what we're saying. It means for us going to places and covering teams and doing things like Meow Wolf Night, but it also means for you being part of the Ultras so we can put you on the map, drop a pin where you're at so we can see what kind of coverage we're getting. We want to hit the entire country. And of course, dot the map is for clubs as well. You know, we may be a little bit suspicious sometimes about the intentions if we don't see the proper interest in soccer backing from the stakeholders. But what we want, what is the right thing, the best thing for American soccer is to have professional soccer operations, certainly high amateur soccer operations that can stand the test of time in as many communities as we can get.
Yeah, and we're going to dot the map. We're going to add a new channel, if you haven't already, for the location, maybe put coordinates in there, and so we can get a cross-section for dots for MK Ultra Map, and then for Club Map, and in our own visits on Morning Kick Around. So got to get the graphic design skills out to have those filters for those different layers of dots on the map. So dot the map with Morning Kick Around, and it looks like we're going to go behind the paywall to do our what we've learned about each other in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But thank you to everyone who tuned in during the live show Put your comments in for all the topics we had on the show today. And until next time, Friday morning, enjoy your soccer.